Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're going to be doing part 20 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. And today we've got a bunch of special things that I'm really excited to show off, especially at the end. You've obviously seen it in the thumbnail, but I'm really excited to show that off because that mod's been in the work for a while. But yeah, let's get started with our first mod. So today we're going to be starting with a lot of things. We've got this one was made by Leaf and Vgrome. This is the Oscar. Now I just gotta, since they're really small, I gotta go find them. There we are. We got the Oscar. So this is a cute little fishy. So Oscars are a species of cichlid, also known as the tiger cichlid, tiger Oscar, velvet cichlid, or marble cichlid. These guys are found across South America, from like French Guiana, Brazil, Ecuador, the Amazon River Basin, and a bunch of these rivers. And they typically live in waters that are slow-moving white water habitats, and have been observed in submerging and under submerged branches. So that's where they use to shelter. So these guys actually get pretty big. They're reported to go about 45 centimeters long and up to 1.6 kilograms. And the wild form of the species typically appears like this. But they can also have a bunch of different variations, especially in captivity. And the species have developed like these really cool, like called ocelli, that on their dorsal fin, these ring spots that have been used, believed to have to limit fin nipping of piranhas. So that means piranhas will not will be less. What's the word? Less. Mine's just gone blank, but less likely to nip on these guys' wonderful fins. So these guys are also very common in the pet trade. So they're also sexually monomated, with males having suggested to grow more quickly, and they can live for 9 to 10 years and reach sexual maturity at about a year old. And timing of the spawning may be on the occurrence of rain. And they seem to be biparental substrate spawners, so we don't really have detailed information of their wild habitat. In captivity, pairs are known to select clean and generally flattened horizontal or vertical surfaces on which to lay their eggs. Smaller females will lay between 300 and 500 eggs, while larger females can lay up to 2,500 to 3,000 eggs. And they practice brood care, although in the wild it's unknown how long they are. But these guys are also very common aquarium fish, and that's why they have a bunch of different variations that you can see in, obviously, aquariums and pet shops. So there's lots of different varieties, including leucistic, albinos, xanthic ones, all sorts of different color patterns and variations. And they like waters that are generally about 12 degrees. That's the lower lethal limit, so it needs to be more than that. And they actually are, feral populations occur in China, Northern Australia, and of course Florida. Because of the pet trade and people just releasing these fish, they can become an invasive species, which obviously is not a very good thing. But yeah, these are pretty cool fish, and they're pretty common in the pet trade. So we're going to move on from one fish to another fish. Pretty awesome bunch. So here we got the bluegill. So the bluegill is a freshwater fish from family Centralidae from order Pecaniformes that are native to North America and live in streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds, and are commonly found east of the Rockies, and usually hides out in and around old tree stumps and other underwater structures, and can live in either very deep or shallow water, and will often move from one another depending on the time of day and season. So it really just depends. So these guys can also get pretty big. They can get up to about 12 inches long, or about 30 centimeters, and weigh up to 2 kilograms. And while their color can vary much from population to population, they typically have this very distinctive color banding that you can see here. See that banding? With deep blue and purple on their face and gill cover, and dark orange olive banded bands down their face, and a fiery orange and yellow belly that you can see here. So these guys are omnivorous and pretty much eat anything they can get their mouths around. They mostly feed on small aquatic insects and fish, but they also play a key role in the food chain, as they are prey for bass, northern pike, trout, herons, kingfishers, snapping turtles, and otters. So they're very important to the ecosystem there. and they've got this really weird adaptation. They're able to swim backwards, which is kind of weird. They have unusual adaptations that allow them to navigate difficult environments. So they use a plethora of fin muscles located in the various parts of the body that allows them to swim backwards. And it's more complex than regular swimming or steady swimming, since it's not just a reversal of that. And it uses its pectoral fins to beat rhythmically. It goes da-da-da-da in like a really weird way. And it uses the dorsal and anal fins to produce momentum to drive the fish backwards. So it's able to kind of like swim backwards, which is really, really weird. And I think that's really cool. So these guys usually incur, breeding for these guys in the spawning season occurs usually around June, and water's about 60 to 80 degrees. This is Fahrenheit, or 19 to 27 degrees Celsius. And the males will first arrive, and they'll make spanning beds of 6 to 12 inches in diameter and cluster around 50 beds together. The males will scoop these beds, and then the females will come, and they'll maintain it. Females will come, and the larger body and eyes is a desirable trait. So the larger size of these traits makes them more attractive to females. Females will come and lay their eggs, and the male combines them in the water, and it's a very beautiful thing. So, also, but these guys are a popular panfish and can be caught with live bait such as worms, crickets, grasshoppers, flies, minnows, maggots, and small frogs. Are pretty much what they can. So they are a common species. They're very common species. They're not at risk, but still they are managed, and people need to hunt them or fish them responsibly. Don't take too more, because there needs to be some for everyone else, including all the otters and pikes and things. They all need this. Damn it, it's going to happen again. They all need their food source, and bluegills are a cool fish. It is wonderful, guy. You're lucky. So now we got another day, another fish. So this one's going to be also interesting as well. We have got the blue discus. So, also known as the brown discus, is a species of cichlid that is native to the eastern and central Amazon basin, and they can be found in black, clear, or white water, and they prefer a lunatic habitat, such as floodplains and flooded forests, meaning that the whitewater it inhabits contains little suspended material, usually main sections of whitewater rivers, and they are largely restricted to water temperatures that are pretty high, from 25 to 32 degrees Celsius, or 77 to 90 Fahrenheit, and a pH of 5.2 to 7.7. These guys also get pretty big. They can typically reach lengths of up to about the snout length, or the straight length. They kind of reach about 15 centimeters or 6 inches, but in captivity they can get even larger, and they can get up to 23 centimeters, as they are common aquarium fish. Discus in general are kind of common aquarium fish, because they're kind of like a status symbol. They're hard to keep. But yeah, that's pretty much enough information on the blue discus. There's not too much to know, but some of the other discuses, not too dissimilar from other discus, and I think these guys are a wonderful guy. I love the battens on these guys. Oh yeah, and I need to go back. So Leaf and Tom have done both the bluegill and they did the blue discus here. So I think they did a good job with that. Wonderful. These are originally, like a lot of them, are Zoo Tycoon mods, and I think they came out quite nicely in Planet Zoo. So nice to see these two credited. So next we have got, for Bongo Hardwood, we have got the Great Curassow. Let's get that sorted. Great Curassow. There we are. Have a look at the male first. So the Great Curassow is a very large pheasant-like bird known from the neotropical rainforests, with a range extending from eastern Mexico to Central America to western Colombia and northwestern Ecuador. So male birds, as you can see here, they've got this very, very black color with these curly feathers on the head, and it looks really cool, and they've got these yellow beaks. And females, they can get into a bunch of color morphs. So this is barred, rufous, and black. So this one is a rufous morph, and we can see that it's got the black hair, and they've got the really cool feathers. I think they came out really nice along with the face here. You can see that it got like a much more of a distinct patterning, and they're really, really cool. So these guys can get to about 78 to 100 centimeters in length and 3.1 to 4.8 kilos. And they vary in weight a little bit. They're the most massive species in the family, but they may be matched by others. And there's other species of Curassow, such as the northern helmeted and black, have about the same average length. So as these guys' ecology, these guys are monogamous. As I mentioned, they live through the rainforests of Mexico, through Central America to western and northwestern Ecuador. And these guys are gregarious. That means they can occur in groupings up to a dozen birds. Let's find the male. We'll have a look at the male again. Did he like actually just... No. How did he get over there so fast? Wow. He went fast. Oof. But these guys are gregarious, and as they like to hang out in groups of a dozen birds or so. And they can occasionally be seen alone as well. They're very generous. They mainly eat omnivorous, They have diet mainly consists of fruits, figs, and arthropods. Small vertebrates may supplement their diet on occasion, such as small rodents and other small mammals. And like other cicadas such as guans, they feed largely on fallen fruit rather than plucked fruit from the trees. And these guys are also, the male of these species may build a nest and to attract the female's attention. And though in other cases both members of a pair will build a nest structure. So these two eggs are usually laid in a relatively small nest, usually made of leaves. And each egg measures about 9.1 to 6.7 centimeters and weigh about 200 grams. A young Curassow weighs about 123 grams upon hatching, and 2,760 grams as a half-year-old immature fledgling, and about a year of age, they're fully fledged and will be 3/4 of the adult weight at 3,600 grams. So this species is actually known for being rather aggressive, and have regularly been directed at humans when the birds are held in captivity, so they can be aggressive. And this has been an inclination to repel natural predators from both themselves and offspring. And known predators in the wild, these guys tend to include ocelots and ornate hawk eagles, though chicks and eggs are likely to fall prey to much more predators. And they use like this distraction display to help protect their babies, so they kind of distract them from the babies. And they have a lifespan in captivity of about 24 years. And these species right now are considered vulnerable because there is a lot of habitat loss going around these areas, along with overhunting. So they're considered vulnerable by the IUCN, and there is a few areas that they're protected, and they also have been known to produce fertile hybrids with their closest living relative, the blue-billed curassow, but also with the more distantly related black curassow. So they tend to be doing a good job there, and let's have a look at the babies. But yeah, these guys are vulnerable, so they're not at risk directly of extinction, but they are declining because of human activities. But look at this wonderful little guy. I think it's a really nice mod. I like this mod a lot. Okay, so that one was done by Bongo Hardwood, and the next one is also done by Leaf. So we all know Leaf. He also did all these ones up here. We have got the 9-banded armadillo. So as you all know, the 9-banded armadillo, I'm not going to assume you know, but is a medium-sized animal found from North, Central, and South America, and the most widespread of all the armadillo species. They originated from South America until the formation of the Isthmus of Panama, and allowed them to enter North America as part of the Great American Interchange. So the 9-banded armadillo is a very solitary animal, mostly nocturnal, and can be found in many types of habitats, from mature and secondary rainforests to grassland and dry scrubs. So they can get pretty big as well. They can range from 2.5 to 6.5 kilograms, and the largest specimens have been seen to get up to 10 kilos, and actually one of the largest species of armadillos, second only to some other species like the giant armadillo. Head and body length for these guys can reach about 38 to 58 centimeters, which combines with their 26 to 53 centimeter long tail, with a total length of 64 to 107 centimeters, so a little over a meter long, and they stand 15 to 25 centimeters tall at the top of the shell. And this really cool shell that they have it's like ossified dermal scutes, and they have like almost like these scales. They have keratinized epidermal scales, that means on the skin, and they have these flexible bands, as you can see here. As you can see, this is the 9-banded armadillo. It gets their name from the 9 bands that they have there that allows them to be more flexible. And also, the cool thing about these guys is that they have a low metabolic rate. That means they are and poor thermoregulation means they're much better suited for subtropical environments or semi-tropical. And unlike these three-banded armadillo, these guys can't roll themselves into a ball, and are capable of floating across rivers by inflating its intestines or sinking and running along the riverbeds, which is really cool. I think that's funny. So as I mentioned, they're very, very commonly found in regions resembling its ancestral home, but they're very adaptable. They can live in tropical rainforests, prairies, scrublands, pretty much whatever. They really only can't thrive in cold or dry environments, as it's not very well insulated and they have low fat. That makes it very susceptible to heat loss. So these guys are rapidly expanding across the US, especially with climate change. And by 1995, the species had been established in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, and have been sighted as far afield as Kansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, and South Carolina. But obviously these guys, in their natural range, they've ranged a lot. The most southern part of their range, they can be found in like northern Argentina and Uruguay. So it's a really, really wide range. And these guys are generally insectivores, and they usually forage for these meals. They look through the leaf litter and even stop to occasionally dig up grubs and stuff. Kind of see what they can, especially like grubs and beetles, ants, termites, and worms. And they supplement their diets with amphibians and small reptiles, even in more wintry months, since they seem to be more sluggish, and occasionally eat bird eggs and baby mammals. They also eat carrion, and less than 10% of their diet is things like fungi, tubers, fruits, and seeds. So I mentioned these guys are solitary and largely nocturnal, and they do make extensive burrowers. They sometimes maintain up to 12 burrows within their range. And they have marked their territories using urine, feces, and excretions from scent glands found in their eyelids, nose, and feet. And they maintain these territories, and they may be aggressive to other males to try and keep them away. So that's pretty cool. So these guys, mating takes place for between a 2 or 3 month long mating season, which occurs between July and August in the northern hemisphere and November, January in the southern. So a single egg is fertilized, but implantation is delayed by 3 to 4 months, as young will not be born during an unfavorable time. So they always try to make sure that the baby is born at the best time for survival. So once the zygote does implant into the uterus, a gestation period of 4 months occurs, and where they will split into 4 identical embryos and attach to a common placenta. And they are born at March of about 3 ounces, and at birth, the quadruplets remain in the burrow, living off mother's milk for about 3 months, and then they will begin to forage with the mother, eventually leaving after 6 months to a year. So that's when they generally start to leave their parents. These guys also reach sexual maturity at 1 year old, and they reproduce every year for the rest of their 12 to 15 year lifespans. A single female can produce up to 56 young over the course of their lifetime, and this very high reproductive rate is very, very important factor in how they are able to spread so fast. So luckily they don't seem to have too much of a impact on the environment. They have been known to cause mild damage to some roots of certain plants, and a lot of species like rattlesnakes, burrowing owls, pine snakes, skunks have been known to be found in their abandoned burrows, and they may threaten the endangered gopher tortoise by aggressively displacing them from their burrows and claiming their burrows for themselves, so that can be a big issue for them. And their studies have shown that the fan-tailed warbler habitually follows armadillos around to feed on insects that is displaced by them, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I think that's really cool to see how they impact the ecosystem. A really cool little animal. I love these armadillos. Wonderful, wonderful little bunch. And now we've got another cool animal. This one is going into the antelopes now. So this is the Addax. So the Addax, also known as the white antelope or the screwhorn antelope, screwhorn, is native to the Sahara Desert, and the only member of its genus was first described by Henry de Bradville in 1816. And these guys have long twisted horns that are typically 55 to 80 centimeters in length in males, and females 70 to 85 in females. So it's a little bit bigger on average on males. Males can stand up to 105 to 115 centimeters at the shoulder here, while females are 95 to 100 centimeters at the shoulder. They're also sexual dimorphic. That means males are slightly larger than the females. and their color of the coat depends on the season. In winter it can be greyish brown with white hindquarters and legs and long brown hair, and in summer it turns almost completely white, like this. So these guys are very, very, they just eat whatever they can. They eat mainly like grasses and leaves. We'll have a look at the female. Is that a female? Yeah, it should be a female. So they generally just live in whatever they can in their desert habitat. And they're well adapted to exist in their desert habitat and can live long periods without water. They tend to typically form herds of 5 to 20 members, consisting of both males and females, and they are led by the oldest female. Due to their slow movements, they are easy target for animals like humans, lions, leopards, cheetahs, and African wild dogs. So the breeding season of this guy is its peak during the winter and early spring, and the native habitat is usually around arid regions, semi-deserts, and sandy and stormy stony deserts. So, as I mentioned, they tend to get sexually matured at about 2 to 3 years old and mate about 2 years. And breeding occurs throughout the year, these guys, but the peaks during the winter and early spring. And in the northern Sahara, the breeding peaks between the end of winter and the beginning of spring. But it really just depends, because it's kind of almost on the equator. It just depends on the best times within their range. So, gestation period for these guys lasts about 257 to 270 days, which is about 9 months. And females may lie or stand during the delivery, which the calf is born, and then a postpartum estrus occurs during 2-3 days, and the calf is 5 kilos in birth and is weaned after 23 to 39 weeks old. So these guys are also critically endangered. So the decline of their population has been ongoing since the mid-1800s, and due to mainly overhunting, they've become much more restricted and rare. So these guys are pretty easy to hunt due to they're moving very slowly. Let's have a look at the baby, because we want to have a look at the cuties. So, ranges things like hunting and drying up their water holes has also increased their numbers. And their meat and leather is also highly prized. And other threats include chronic droughts, habitat destruction due to agriculture, and it's believed that no more than 500 are thought to exist in the wild, with most of them found being in Niger, Western Chad, and in Yagkor and Matarango, however you pronounce it. So luckily there's over 600 Addax in Europe, and zoos around Europe, North America, Japan, and Australia under captive breeding programs. There are 1,000 more in private collections at ranches in the United States and the Middle East. So there's luckily a lot of them around. It's mainly just not that many in the wild anymore, which is really sad. Hopefully some of these reintroductions will become more and more prevalent, so there's plenty of numbers of them. So they're legally protected in Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria. And there have been reintroductions to places like parks in Morocco and in Tunisia, and have also been reintroduced into Sahara, and there's another plant of Morocco. So these guys are getting gradually reintroduced into the wild, so that's awesome. A wonderful animal. And this was also done by Narwhal. So Narwhal did a good job with the Addax, and I think it's a really cool species to highlight. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next animal. We have got the Borneo clouded leopard, or just the Sudan clouded leopard. So the Sudan clouded leopard there's two species of clouded leopard. There's the mainland clouded leopard and the Sudan clouded leopard that lives in the Southeast Asia, so around Sumatra and Borneo and places like that. And these guys live in both the Sunda Islands. This is the subspecies that's from Borneo. And they can get pretty big. They can get a pretty stocky build. They can get between 12 and 36 kilograms with canine teeth that are 2 inches long and are proportionally longer than any living cat. And you wouldn't say that 10,000 years ago because we're saber-toothed, but it's very, very comparable, which is pretty cool. These guys are restricted to islands of Borneo and Sumatra. This particular subspecies is only found in Borneo. They occur in lowland rainforests and lower density in log forests below 1,500 meters. And in Sumatra, they are pretty sparsely populated. So these guys are very secretive, so there's a lot that's not known about their nature. But they are generally solitary and hunt mainly on the ground and use their climbing skills to hide from danger. And you can see this cute baby here. A really, really wonderful little animal. So big threats to these guys include Due to their strong forest dependence, like habitat destruction, especially that's happening a lot around Asia, is a big issue for these guys. And since the early 1970s, much of the forest cover had been cleared from southern Sumatra, particularly those lowland tropical evergreen forests, and have been really pressured by people clearing out the forest. But also a big issue for these guys is the wildlife trade. So they are considered endangered and vulnerable. So that's bad. So they're considered vulnerable by the IUCN, but there's luckily lots of conservation work, because cats are a very charismatic species. There's a lot of conservation work going into these guys, which I think is really cool. And you need these sort of habitats. There's been some populations, they have a population size, I believe it's a few thousand, 1,500 to 3,200 individuals, with only 200 of them to 500 of them living in protected areas. So a lot of them live in unprotected areas, so those areas really do need to be protected. And they are estimated to live at about 8 to 17 individuals per 100 kilometers, so they do have wide ranges that they maintain and that they hunt prey. So probably not too different, they just eat whatever they can. Most animals are like that. They eat whatever prey they can find. Now to say, the baby here, where's the baby? That baby is very, very cute, what you say? I think it's really cool that they made it like slightly darker as well, so that's awesome. So now let's move on to the next animal. That was done by Leaf again. And now we've got another one by Leaf and Aurora Designs. We've got the green sea turtle. So let's have a look at this guy swimming. That's awesome. Wonderful. Look at that. This is ordered by Aurora Designs, which is originally for a Zootopia model. So the green sea turtle is a species of large sea turtle and the only one in its genus that range from tropical and subtropical seas across the world, with two distinct populations in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but also found in the Indian Ocean. So their common name usually refers to their green flat fold that they can be found in the carapace, and not the colour of the carapace, which is olive and black. So that's usually here they get the green from. Really wonderful animal. So these guys have these really large paddle-like flippers, and you can see this is like they have a teardrop-shaped carapace. So there's that here. You can see it's kind of like a teardrop, which allows them to swim through the water pretty easily. And unlike other sea turtles, like hawksbill sea turtles, these guys are mostly herbivorous. So they usually inhabit shallow lagoons, feeding mostly on a variety of seagrasses, and they bite off the tips of these seagrasses, which keeps them healthy, which keeps grass healthy. So these guys also migrate long distances between feeding and hatching grounds, and if you see these guys, they can lay up to hundreds of eggs. So their breeding strategy, they pretty much just try and flood the ecosystem with babies, and hopefully a few of them survive. So that means they'll usually just find whatever sandy beaches they can find. They usually haul up on them and lay dozens of eggs, cover them up in sand, and then swim back, and hopefully a few survive. So with that, they also compensate by having a long lifespan. So tortoises have been known to reach up to 80 years in the wild, and I don't even know how long we know generally how they can live, but 80 years is considered still a very long time, and they can produce hundreds and even thousands of eggs in their lifetime. So these are sadly an endangered species, and they're protected by CITES and the IUCN. So luckily it's illegal to collect and harm and kill them, but in addition, many laws have become to try and protect these nesting areas that they need, so we can replenish the populations. What's also really, really sad is that they are still in danger of a lot of human activities, and they're still hunted for food by some countries, especially their eggs, which is very vulnerable, and adults as well. And pollution indirectly harms these guys, because if you've seen like a lot of plastic gets into the ocean, and these guys often get choked on plastic bags and such, which is really, really sad. And also young tortoises and adult turtles, not tortoises, turtles, they can get caught and tangled in nets, which is very dangerous. And also real estate development and habitat loss, which causes habitat loss, can often eliminate their nesting beaches, which they need to breed. So a lot of them need to be protected for the turtles to thrive. And I think this is a wonderful model. I think it came out really, really well. So now, last but definitely not least, this mod has been in the works for quite a long while. And I remember seeing, like, when modding first became a thing, these mods were happening, and you can see a teaser of that there. So we have got, by NDP, who has been working on this for the longest time, like a year and a half, we have got the woolly mammoth, and we can see all the variation there. That's so awesome. This the female? Yeah, no, it's the male. Look at you, look at you, wonderful animal. Look at you playing in the snow. So, the woolly mammoth. So the woolly mammoth is arguably probably one of the most famous animals, extinct animals that there is. So these guys are a species of mammoth that lived in the Pleistocene, and actually lived right up to about 30,000 years, not 30, 3 or 4,000 years ago. There was a population isolated on Wrangel Island. So there were dwarf mammoths that were living at the same time as the pyramids, but they were heavily inbred, so that led to their extinction. So these were one of the last species of mammoths that died out at that time, and they are descended from the steppe mammoth. And even though they're in America, there were populations that hybridized with the Columbian mammoth, which I think I've showed in a few episodes before. It's really cool to see this animal covered in hair. It's just wonderful. So these guys lived pretty much everywhere. We know a lot about their anatomy and their habitat. It was really cool. So these guys used to be found from all the way from Europe, all across Russia and Siberia, and they crossed the land bridge that was at the time Beringia, which is now the Bering Strait, and then they got into North America and got as south as I believe places like Ohio and such. So they got into the United States. So these guys are not the largest mammoths. They're one of the on the smaller side. There are mammoths smaller, like the Channel Island dwarf mammoth, but these guys got about the same size as African elephants today. Males reach between 2.7 and 3.4 centimeters at the shoulder and weigh between 6 metric tons, weighed up to 6 metric tons, and females got between 2.6 to 2.9 meters tall and at shoulder height and weighed up to 4 tons. And a newborn calf was pretty large. They could weigh up to 90 kilograms. So the woolly mammoth was adapted for these cold habitats that they lived in, by having this long coat of fur. And usually looking at genetics, we can tell that they had adapted hemoglobin that was really efficient at grabbing oxygen, and also things like it's to stop it from kind of like freezing almost, because they had to really take care. And also the color, the ears and tail were also short to minimize the risk of frostbite. So you can see they have a short tail and small ears, and they also have these very, very long curvy tusks that you can see here that were used to pretty much whatever they wanted, to fight, to clear snow if necessary, things like that. Really wonderful. And these molars they have, like elephants, they have 4 to 6 molars throughout their lifetime that they replace, and once the last ones are replaced, they pretty much have to eat soft food or die. And we know these animals had a pretty long life, even though they were in the mammoth steppe, which is an extinct ecosystem pretty much, where these mammoths sort of maintained it. They almost like a savanna. They pushed down trees, they moved a lot of biomass because they were fertilizing the ground. Big animals have big impacts on ecosystems, and that's how they maintain the mammoth steppe, hence the name mammoth steppe. So these guys fed on mainly grasses and sedges, because it was so dry in these ecosystems, there wasn't much in terms of plants. We'll have a look at the female and then we'll look at the baby. We'll talk about the baby soon. So as I mentioned, yeah, they maintain these ecosystems and use their trunk to sort of like pull down trees and push down trees. They would eat pretty much whatever plants they could. And they lived a pretty long life. They could live up to 60 years old. So the woolly mammoth did coexist with early humans, and you use their bones and tools for art, tools, dwellings and things like that. And the wild population went extinct on the mainland about 10,000 years ago, and there are populations such as St. Paul Island and Wrangel Island that lived respectively from 5,600 years ago to about 14,000 years ago. And now, when we're looking at their genomes, it's possible that obviously we can bring them back. There's been lots of effort to try and sort this, learn about their genome, and we've learned a lot about mammoths from their genome. Like, for example, we know they have the genes for this all sorts of variation that you can see even here, which is really awesome that they added into the mod. We can see they had mammoths that were sort of brunette mammoths. They have this black hair. You can see mammoths that were sort of gingers, had lighter reddish colors, as you can see here. There were some that were more brownish. Like, it's very similar to humans. There was a lot of variation within hair color, which was really, really cool. You can have a look at the baby. Look at this cute baby. And that's one of the many things we've learned about studying the mammoth genome, and have been proposed to bring the species back. And there's a lot of merit to those, actually, because if you look at the permafrost, which is melting due to anthropogenic climate change, or human-caused climate change, these mammoths and other large animals like bison, horses, rhinos, etc., that lived in the mammoth steppe, they were very important to clearing a lot of the snow off the ground, which is a big insulator for heat. So instead of snow being about a meter thick, they'd reduce it down to like 30 to 60 centimeters thick, so it's much thicker, much thinner, which means that they would be unable to collect as much heat, and that means there'd be less permafrost melting. So that's been proven by places like Pleistocene Park, which have put large herbivores back on the landscape and studied this effect. And theoretically, it's possible that bringing back the woolly mammoth could save the world almost. They could reduce anthropogenic climate change, which I think is really cool to think how these animals are how the world's so interconnected, and how animals like mammoths and even animals today like elephants. And elephants today, they are very important ecosystem engineers and help clear out savannas and move a lot of biomass, spread seeds, especially African forest elephants that live in the forests. They tend to spread a lot of seeds. So yeah, this is a wonderful mod. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I just gotta have a look at these cute babies. A very charismatic animal. Very, very cool. And this is a cute one. Adorable. So I believe that's a good place to end the episode. So let's pull out here. So I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit that little bell icon to get notified when I upload anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. You guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.